We have a very exciting speaker. He is a subject matter expert. He has 10 years on the mainframe. He is a mainframe hacking, a history of mainframe hacking and pen testing. Phil Young is a real subject matter expert, well-respected in the industry. So welcome, Phil. Come on up here.
Come on. The four of you, come on. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up, the four of you. So these guys just put these shirts on right before my talk. That's my face on the back. Thank you. Okay. So, yes, that's going to be a lot of people. So, I was talking with Roxanne at Share, and she's like, hey, Phil, come do a keynote. What do you want to do? And I was like, you know, I've been toying with this idea of a talk that's about sort of like when I started doing mainframe hacking, mainframe pen testing, and where we are today, and how we got here, right? Look, this talk will be mostly about me, but not totally about me. As you can see, even my introduction slide is not just me, right? So that's me. I am the director of mainframe pen testing at NetSpy. I was at Wells Fargo for 8 years, and then a previous employer that I'm going to talk about in a bit. So I won't name them. Come get me at the bar later. I'll tell you who they are. So if you don't know me by my real name, I also go by Soldier of Fortran. You know, I was a 90 hackers kid. Anyone else? A 90s hacker kid? One, Chad? So that meant exploring. Anybody remember, like, okay, who's Canadian in the room? Yeah, all right. 4 of us. So, did you guys ever use DataPack? Yeah, 1 of us. So DataPack was, anybody know TimeNet, Telenet, those X25 networks down here in the States? Same thing in Canada, was just called DataPack. That's where I sort of started playing around and hacking around with computers. These 2 other people, no idea who they are, how they got here. How did I get here? So at my previous employer that I will not name, I was an auditor. I was a very technical mainframe auditor who was doing checklists. So I really didn't know what I was doing. And I met with the head of mainframe to talk about security, and they sat me down, and they're like, we're going to explain to you our 3 pillars of cybersecurity. So picture in your head what those 3 pillars might be. And I promise you, you will be shocked. So the first one, compliance. Debatable. Like, I could say, yes, okay, that's a fine pillar, right? That's a fine, it's okay. Compliance is not security. It's like the bare minimum you have to do so you don't get fined, right? Like, compliance is not security. Second pillar, anybody want to have an idea what the second pillar is? Anyone want to guess? No, no guesses? It's audit, was the second pillar they told me. Audit should never be a pillar. Audit is the 3rd line of defense. The first line defense is everyone here in this room, unless you're an auditor. So everyone here is the first line, right? You're the people who run the systems, the people who are in charge of the systems. That's the first line. That's front line. Second line is the IT security department. Their job is to write the rules that you have to implement. Make sure you're implementing them properly. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do from a security perspective. Monitor the systems, make sure there's no breaches, that kind of thing. Second line. Audit is the 3rd line who comes in and says, security people, you're not doing your job. IT people, you're not doing your job. They don't write the policies. They just take whatever policy you said you're going to do and implement it, right? That's audit, not a pillar. The 3rd pillar is very, very good. Now, if you built a house on these 3 pillars, super stable base, super stable. This is true, by the way. I'm not making this up. And this was, like, you could tell this was a rehearsed talk that they'd given to lots of people, like PCI assessors. And I was like, so I'll just read it for those in the back. You can't just go to Best Buy and buy the operating system, which technically true, right? You can't just go and buy the operating system at a store. In fact, you can only license it even if you wanted to, right? But somehow I was able to get a hold of the operating system through various means. And that's when I realized that, one, all my checklists were garbage. They were missing complete parts of the operating system. Like, has anyone ever looked at the ISACA audit guide for ZOS? For a while, a long while, it didn't even have Unix as part of the guide. That's what your auditors are using to check on you, right? That second pillar. So I got my hands on the operating system. That's when I released my first tool. This is a tool. That's when I wait a minute, you can do user enumeration in TSO in the year 2012? Like, if someone found this on SSH today, it would be a CVE in the news, right? And I'm guaranteed a bunch of you still haven't implemented TSO password pre-prompt, right? So this is the first tool, garbage tool. When you release tools and talk about mainframe hacking, you get these kind of comments, right? It's a very welcoming and friendly community of like-minded individuals who respect and admire the effort and the work that goes into doing cybersecurity research. This comment, by the way, was on a YouTube video. This was in Facebook, talking about a YouTube video for a conference I spoke at that had comments disabled, as if I controlled the conference's YouTube. So look at how they put the word hack in air quotes, right? Chad was educating some folks on what hacking is. And he sent me the whole diatribe, but I took this part of it out because it succinctly tells me, it explains where we're coming from when I'm talking about hacking, right? Just so we all know. Yes, cyber criminals do hacking. But when I'm talking about hacking, I'm talking from the curiosity aspect, the exploration aspect, the how did they do this? And what's bad about it? What's good about it, right? I'm doing this because it's interesting, it's challenging, and I just want to know how things work, right? And also, I don't know about the rest of you, but I bank in this country, and so it's probably a good idea to have the platform we use for that be as rock solid as possible. So way back in 2012, when I started doing this, there was nothing on the internet. Literally nothing. Except for 3 people. These are to me, these are the 3 OG mainframe gangsters, right? Funny story, I took Stu Henderson's audit class, and it's where I met my wife. So, yeah, so not at the training, let's be clear, not at the training. Not saying anything wrong with that. So my kids can thank Mainframe for being around. But anyway, so Stu Henderson, if you Googled mainframe hacking, pen testing at the time, you would find this talk, right? Which is how to break into ZOS systems. Interesting talk. It's hard. A lot of mainframers don't put detail in their slide decks. So it's very high level. So I remember reading this, and it said something like, trusted LPARs could be taken advantage of. I'm like, what is that? Now I know that he was talking about NJE, and we'll talk about that later. But it was just super vague. It was super frustrating for me coming from a very information wants to be free world into a very, let's be as vague as possible. The next person that was doing stuff was, this is not the only picture of you, by the way. There'll be lots, Mark. So this is another talk, right? Mark has, if you ever go on Confex, Mark has tons of talks. If you want to see what kind of motorcycle he's currently using, you can go like a history of his cars on Share. But again, great, really interesting. It was nice to know other people were thinking and talking about this. Only problem is Share talks aren't recorded. The ones that are private. And the slides, again, are kind of high level, kind of vague. But I will say, we in the mainframe cybersecurity community have used Mark's slides to basically build all of our tools. He'll drop something in a slide deck like, sysproc was writable. And that's it. That's the whole slide. And then we'll go back and be like, what is he talking about? Oh, well, maybe. And then we'll figure it out and write a tool to do it. The last person at the time was Nigel Pentland. Look, this is his profile picture. So, but who here knows Nigel? Anyone know Nigel? Yeah. So Nigel wrote a program called CrackF, which was a password auditing tool for RackF. closed source, and it didn't show you the passwords. It just showed you like star, 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 and then like the last couple of letters, right? He figured out the DES hashing algorithm for RACF. I spoke with him and told him, hey, maybe you should talk to the John the Ripper folks. Does anyone know what John the Ripper is? No? No one? No one? So John the Ripper is an offline password cracking tool. If I get password hashes, I can throw John the Ripper against it, and it will try to guess what the password is and try to crack the hash, right? So that's all done offline. Doesn't matter how many lockout attempts you have. I just have the database, and I'm cracking it, right? So what's really important about this is, at the time, this is the first tool that is an open source cybersecurity research tool that supports ZOS, right? That was unheard of back in 2012, which is not that long ago, right? Like back then, none of the tools supported the platform. This is the first known example of like one of these tools supporting the platform. And then he went on to talk about it at B-Sides Glasgow in 2018, right? At the same time, I'm doing the Internet Mainframe project. If you've seen any of my talks, I've talked about this at length. An important piece of the puzzle here, if you look at the screenshot, you see I'm using Tor, right? Anybody know what Tor is? I'm dropping all these like cybersecurity things. It's like a private networking thing, like so you can browse the internet privately. There's a reason I'm using Tor. It'll come up in a few slides. You'll see why. But anyways, so I start finding mainframes on the internet. So to me, these are just cool, right? They're just interesting, right? I'm not commenting on whether or not they're secure or whether or not, I will in a second on one of them, but I'm not commenting on if they're safe or not. I had to include this one based on where we're talking right now. I gave a talk in Raleigh where I showed this screenshot. Someone called that number during the talk. Please, come on, please. Don't do that. But it's interesting, right? Like my dad was a pilot for Air Canada. So finding other airline mainframes is cool, right? Or someone spent a lot of time and effort to make this infinity symbol. Do you know how hard it is to make EBCDIC art? Have you ever done it? Have you ever done it in assembly and you only have like 50 columns you can work in to make a whole screen? It super sucks. Ask me how I know, because I helped write the VTAM screen for the CTF. And if you haven't checked out the CTF, please go do it. It's super cool. But this is hard. So there's respect here for this person. Right? You know this person didn't do this because they had to. They did it because they wanted to, right? And then this one, this is why, like, if you're connecting to mainframes that aren't yours, always use Tor, because you never know what you're going to find. Yeah, this is cool. This one was super cool. This one freaked me out when I found it. So we'll move on from that. So speaking of freaking out about things, who here has heard about the logic of breach? Okay, hold up your hands higher, because I need to know like actual numbers. That's it? Wow. Well, that table, yeah. So back in 2013, a Swedish-born person living in Malaysia hacked a government mainframe in Sweden. And they found multiple 0 days. They found multiple ways to attack the LPAR. They were in it for years, apparently. And all of this information is publicly available. It was all released to the public because the person that did this ran the Pirate Bay. So it's like a full circle now. But the things he did, here's an example. Here's one of the rec scripts. Now, first of all, there's two reports, one in English, one in Swedish. The English one had the first half of this rec script. The Swedish one had the second half of the rec script. Like they redacted the wrong parts. So what's interesting about this rec script is the attacker figured out that if you call a setuid compiled rec script with this script, this is the whole script, and you run it, it gives you an UID of 0 in Unix. And a UID of 0, okay, so, oh, you're not special or whatever. It's still super dangerous, right? This example you're going to watch, super dumb, right? I'm just accessing a file, big deal. The way I would use this in an actual pen test is I would find the home folder for a system programmer and then put an SSH key in their .ssh folder, and then SSH is then without their password, right? Super, super easy. and I'm in. I did it like 2-3 weeks ago, right? So here you go. You can see the exploit. Now this has been fixed. This was patched like 10 years ago, right? Which fix did it? I have no idea, right? But this has all been fixed. Also, my email was in the investigation. At the time, there was a total of 1 person on the internet talking about mainframe hacking on mailing lists. I emailed the John the Ripper mailing list because I was talking to Nigel, and I wrote a little like, hey, if you want to test this, you have to make sure you download the RACF database in binary over FTP, because if you don't, it won't work. When I sent that email that same day, the attacker did just that. They downloaded the RACF database as ASCII, and then downloaded it again as a binary. So they were like, this person's obviously the attacker, right? Like, this is an email that they sent to Gmail, not my Gmail, like Gmail official. So anyways, so it was crazy. I was reading on a flight, and I was like, wait, hold on. So they were reading my emails. So speaking of emails, this is when Chad comes into the picture. Chad sends me this email. I'm not going to make you read the whole thing. Basically, it's, can we be friends? Yes, no, maybe, right? Other people, like no one else is talking about this. Can we be friends? And he sends me this email, and I'm so stoked. This whole time I've been doing everything by myself. I'm too scared to email Mark. Like he's the luminary of this industry. I'm not going to just email him. He's a celebrity. So that's not a joke, by the way. I still don't email him. So yeah, exactly. So Chad sends me this. We have a couple of meetings, and then he comes to a conference I'm speaking at, and I'm up on stage talking, and he's like, you don't get it. The audience, you guys aren't getting it. He's telling the audience this. And I go, do you want to just come on up and make this a co-talk? So unprepared, unrehearsed, this is Chad taking over my talk for me at a mainframe conference. You can see here I'm having my completely adult beverage while he's just taking over. Look, that's it. That's the end of my talk. Chad just took it over. Chad and I then became like, look, that email, no lie, changed my life. Legit changed my life. I've been all over the world, Chad. This is us in Australia. He bought a boat. I sent him a hat, and he took this picture, right? This begins what I like to call the golden era of sort of mainframe pen testing and research. And we're still in that era right now. But, and also, just for the record, I made this with AI, and it got the words right. So I was very impressed. So we start making tools. Now remember I talked about John the Ripper being one of the first tools that included a mainframe component in it, like officially, right? Nmap was the second tool. Nmap is a network port scanner. I use it on every engagement. I scan. This specific script is enumerating VTAM application IDs. I use it on every engagement, exploring. I have found CICS regions that are totally unsecure. It's great. But that's just part of Nmap now. So you can, if you have a Linux box, you can just do apt install Nmap, and this will come straight with the tool. Chad, at the same time, added ZArch, or ZOS, to Metasploit. Metasploit is a command and control framework, and you use it to generate exploits, launch those exploits, and it will manage the sessions for you. Similar to Cobalt Strike, but this is like the original command and control. So this is something Chad wrote. It was not easy getting this architecture in. It's all Ruby, but it's all there now. More Nmap stuff. So here's a tool. Look, I love the idea of enumerating TSO users for some reason. So here's another version of that. It's much faster than the one I wrote in Bash. This is really cool. Up until this point, you would go to you'd hear especially mainframe forums, buffer overflows on the mainframe are impossible. You can't do buffer overflows on the mainframe. That's what we know, right? For whatever reason, system programmers thought that was true. Chad went and figured out how to do it and spoke about it at DEF CON in 2015. So if you have a chance, I strongly recommend you go check that out. This one GIF is from that slide, and it's just showing him exploiting a program, overflowing its buffer, and using that to become that program's ID, and so on and so forth. So that's a buffer overflow. Then we started looking at network job entry. and I wrote a Python library for network job entry, which allows us to impersonate trusted nodes in your NJE environment. So if I'm on an engagement and I see a whole bunch of nodes declared in your Jes2 parms, and some of them aren't connected, I'm going to connect as them. And if they're trusted, now I can become any user, because I can just say, hey, I'm IBM user, run this job at this other node, right? How do we figure out what the nodes are? Well, we wrote an Nmap script that brute forces NJE nodes, right? All of this happened in 1 year of me and Chad working together. That was 1 year of effort. Anybody know who this is? Yeah, I see some people laughing. Anyone know? He told me to use this picture. So this is Henry. Henry invited me to give a talk at GuideShare Europe, give a keynote similar to this. It's a keynote where I learned a very important lesson, record your demos. So I show up, I'm ready to give a talk, and I have all these demos ready to go on my sandbox LPAR at home. And he goes, no, don't use that. Use our LPAR for the conference. Use that one to run your tools live. And I'm like, that's a great idea. It was not. So I ran all the tools, and I hit a KIX region, and the KIX region was not locked down at all, and I could access CECI and CEMT. CEMT, CECI is the worst. If you can access that and you have spool turned on, it's awful. So I'm live on stage, and a person in the front row is like, oh no. They were the one running the LPAR for the conference, did not know this was set up. So that's Henry. Henry, after that conference, Henry, Chad, and I meet up for a phone call. Talked, I don't know what, 3 hours? Forever, right? He goes, hey, we should set this up. We should set up a Slack. We should do this, we should do that. And I'm like, why don't we set up a Slack and set up like a cadence? And we'll call it the Mainframe Hacker Society, right? And we made rules. And we made these rules because Chad and I gave a talk and we set up a mailing list, and like 200 people joined the mailing list, and there was one email from me to the mailing list saying hi. And that was it. Everyone else was trying to like get insider information. So now we created the Mainframe Hacker Society. And that Mainframe Hacker Society has like 4 rules, 3 of them how to get in and 1 of them how to stay in. So to become a member, you have to give a talk. It has to be recorded. And we do that because all these talks that aren't recorded, all these private talks, they don't further the research, right? They have to, like, I remember starting out, there were just 3 talks in PowerPoint that were vague, right? This information needs to get out there. The other thing that's funny is like, anytime someone gives a talk on doing anything on ZOS, I'll email them out of the blue. Like, hi, you don't know who we are. We're the Mainframe Hacker Society. Here's your Slack invite. Welcome to the family. You're now a part of the family. And you'll see why that's super, like, some of the members like really embrace it. So you have to give a talk, and it has to be recorded. If it's not, if you don't do that, or maybe you just don't like giving talks, right? Not everyone likes giving talks. You have to contribute publicly to the mainframe cybersecurity research community somehow, right? Whether that means you're writing blog posts on how to use tooling, whether that means you're using, you've committed code to GitHub and released tools. Like you'll see someone who comes up in a second who releases tools, and that's how they came in, right? The next one is you must talk at our quarterly meetings, right? There's some members here who don't show up to our meetings. I'm staring right at them. But they're legacy. They can stay in forever. But we do clear the roster. Henry and I will go through the roster and be like, they haven't come to a meeting in 6 months. They've never presented at our quarterly meetings, and we'll just bounce them. And then if they protest, we might let them in, but say like, oh, you can come back if you talk at our next meeting. About a topic, whatever topic you want, you have to talk. Quarterly meetings, one of our quarterly meetings went so long we had to reschedule a follow-up meeting a week later. Because it's a global team, right? It's people spread across the world. So it was like 4 hours. The last thing is you have to participate in our Slack. We have a Slack that's dedicated to this. And if you're just there lurking 24/7, not contributing, we'll bounce you. Right? If you don't show up to the meetings, you're not giving any public talks, you're not contributing back to the community, all right, you can come back when you do those things. Today, so when it started, it was just the three of us, Chad, Henry, and I. That's how we started. That was 10 years ago. Today, we have 21 members, right? And it's growing. We just indicted a new member a month ago, right? Don't read all the names. These are, look, some people, didn't want to be acknowledged of being part of the group. Others, I just put all their handles in. We'll talk about real names in a second here. So Henry, first member, one of the OGs. If you don't know who Henry is, Henry, huge on community, right? He's big on community involvement, running things. Has anyone used Ziggy? Yeah, a handful of people. Ziggy is amazing. Ziggy lets you use ISPF panels to interface with Git. So you can do your code changes on the mainframe where you're comfortable and then push them up into a Git repo on GitHub. Really, really cool. PyRackF is another tool. Now, mind you, the name will change for branding reasons because someone else came and said, hey, I won't name the company, but they came and said, hey, we're also making a Python RackF script library called PyRackF. Can you rename this to something else? Because he put this on PyPy, so they couldn't take it, so he's rebranding it. But anyways, it's a Python script that lets you take database unloads and analyze your RackF database with Python. So you can see like, oh, how many people have access to APF authorized libraries and all that kind of stuff. And it puts it all in Python objects so you can export it, all that kind of stuff. He's also big on, like again, community, so CBT tape, all that stuff. So him and I were talking about how do we make that more accessible? Because right now it's all locked behind XML files. How do we make that accessible on Git so it's searchable, so people can find code that's been previously written without having to install like Hercules and MVS 3.8 to look at it, right? That's what the path is today. So he also runs the advent of code for ZOS. So he does lots, right? Also, an idea man. He's the guy who will be on a call and someone will be like, hey, I'm trying to do this. And he'll come back and it's like, hey, did you try this other way? And he's like, I didn't even know that way existed. What are you talking about, right? Very, very smart, very, very, probably, like, we've hung out a bunch in Amsterdam. Cool guy. Next up is Chad. Chad is here. Chad, put your hand up. I'm going to call out the members that are here. So Chad is here. Chad, this is, so one of the things, so Mark's slides will say, exploited SVCs, and then have a picture of like a motorcycle. That'll be the whole slide. Chad went and gave an entire talk at Black Hat about how to reverse and exploit poorly coded SVCs. I strongly recommend you check out that talk. It is a fantastic talk about really digging into the inner workings of ZOS and how like actual hackers and pen testers can take advantage of that. He also purchased and drives around an Aston Martin Vantage. He told me to put this in here specifically. Let's see, what else can we talk about, Chad? So who here uses RackF pass tickets? Yeah, it's, depending on your implementation, not the safest, because Chad wrote a Python script that's available on GitHub that will generate pass tickets if you know like the ID or the application that's generating those pass tickets. He also, so what's funny is IBM released KDF AES. John the Ripper added DES, the RackF DES to John the Ripper. Shortly thereafter, KDF AES came out. They're not connected. I know they're not connected because it's not like they just like, oh, dang, we better fix this. I'm sure they were working on a solution long before John the Ripper, right? But KDF AES came out for RackF. If you're not using it, you should be using it today. Storing your passwords in DES in the year 2024, you might as well put them in a text file on your desktop. I'll save time. We can do questions after. Yes. The other thing that he did, so someone posted on the IBM main mailing list, here's the AES algorithm. So then Chad took it and put it in John the Ripper. Right? That's how that story goes? So now it's in John the Ripper. So now it's supported. So now if I download a RackF database during a pen test, I can crack the passwords offline. But because it's using the stronger algorithm, it takes longer. Right? Like a large RackF database with DES encrypted, hashed passwords, maybe a day to crack most of them, right? Whereas this new algorithm takes much longer. He also gave a really interesting talk with Ian about Anyone here use ZCX or whatever it's called now? All of you? No, so just for those in the front, no one put their hand up, right? Just so we're clear. That's the Docker container thing for ZOS. And Chad and Ian figured out a way to break out of it. And they gave a whole talk about it at DEF CON. I also strongly recommend you check that out. Chad's also really good at helping me rewrite my tools. And he's very nice about it. He's very humble. He definitely doesn't go on Twitter and make fun of me for wanting to create a quick program in assembly that crashes on production LPARs because they have more than 100 catalogs. So thanks for that. Next up is Mark. Just so we're clear, I asked Chad for embarrassing photos, and this was the best one. Mark, again, is a member, and he helps out. People will ask questions in Slack. Mark will answer those questions. He's willing to help folks learn more and think of things that they should be looking into, or even coming up with areas that the person hasn't even considered looking into, right? He's helped in numerous ways with me personally, with other members of the society. I was told to put this in that he works on mainframes part-time when he takes a break from his full-time motorcycle repair shop. Is that true? Is that? Yes, there we go, good. All right, next. So that's the people who are here, except for one. Next is Ayub. Ayub was really like the first non-mainframe official member. He was the first one who's like, dropped a tool on, in fact, I was at Vanguard in Vegas, if anyone remembers that. I was giving a talk on mainframe pen testing. And the night before my talk, he drops this ELV APF tool, and I have to rewrite half my talk, because I'm like, screw that talk, we're talking about this. This is cool. Drops the tool, then I email him, and like, hey, welcome to the family. You're part of the Mainframe Hacker Society. And then he releases a couple other tools. So I'm going to cover the first one. This is ELV.apf. What it does is it first lists your access rights to an APF authorized library. And if you have update or greater, you copy that data set name, pass it as an argument to the script, and then it will change your attributes in RACF to be system special. That's what it does. And it does it, and what was interesting and great about this tool is I've been hearing about how dangerous APF was for a decade and how bad, but there was no examples of the impact of that. There was no examples, there was no code out there that was like, run this to show how bad it is to the people you're auditing, until this tool came out, right? Now, we have better ways of doing it today. We don't use this tool anymore, but mostly because it uses RACF commands to figure out your access rights, and those should all be locked down on your LPARs. The other tool that he wrote, which is really dangerous, is Kixpone. What's happening here is it accesses a Kix region, finds out that the CECI transaction is not locked down, creates a token, and then uses the spool write command in Kix, like the API, to upload JCL to the internal reader through the Kix region. Not a big deal if you've protected your region and make sure everyone has to log in before they access this transaction. Super dangerous if you allow anyone access to CECI, which I have encountered far too many times on pen test engagements. So I'm telling you all now, please make sure it's locked down. It's really dangerous. So what's happening here? It's uploading JCL. What this JCL will do, it will open port 31337, and that runs a rec script that basically takes whatever you send it and runs it through address TSO in recs. That's all it's doing. So what does that look like? So we're going to connect. So I'm not going to make you wait. It's really slow. I'm going to make you wait. So we're going to upload our script. And now I'm connected. That TSO, that's me interfacing with the mainframe, right? And now I can run whatever TSO commands I want as the Kix region. I'm running as the Kix region user now. And if that user has update access to an APF authorized library, like this is just a demo, but realistically the kill chain goes, run that script. The JCL I submit is not this. It would be a JCL that does what ELV APF did. Find APF authorized libraries I can update, insert a library, run it, create an account that is system special. All unauthenticated. Super, super dangerous. Next up on the list is Davide, an Italian gentleman who lives in Sweden. This is him on the stock YouTube channel, which is another, like, if you go watch his YouTube channel is great. Anyway, so this is him. He joined, he just asked to join, and I was like, yeah, you can come, but you got to give a talk to our meeting. Gave a talk, and then started just doing these things publicly, joining like YouTube, like, I don't know, interviews and stuff to talk about the platform, right? He has done countless things for the community. He's all about really updating and modernizing some of our tooling, helping rewrite some of the tools. He wrote a tool called ZOS pivoting. So if I do say, so we were talking about network segmentation earlier, right? Oftentimes, the mainframe is like the center hub of your network because it's got to talk to all these different networks. So if I come in from the corporate network, I can run this tool, and now I can pivot from the mainframe into a more secure network because I'm pivoting through the mainframe, right? So like proxies, all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things he does. He also added our very password support. So one of our tools, enum, it's down here. One of our tools can pull the rvary passwords from memory because all this stuff is just in memory. But it comes in like hex bytes. So instead what he did is he converted it so that in the script itself, it'll tell you, here is the rvary password, copy this, put it in a text file, and John the Ripper will crack it for you, right? Other things he's done, does anybody know what a De Bruijn pattern is, other than you? No? Great. Come to my talk tomorrow on mainframe buffer overflows, where I will explain to you what that is. And we'll talk about mainframe buffer overflows in a second. But anyways, he's all about updating lists, updating tooling, making this more public. SecLists is a huge GitHub repo that has hundreds of like word lists to scan against when you're scanning web servers and whatnot. This is Jake LaBelle. Jake gave a talk at DEF CON about surrogate profiles and wrote a rec script called Gator that would map out all your surrogates. So like you get access to one user, and then does it have access to more users, and then just sort of map out your level of access through submitting jobs as those other users. I emailed him after the talk, said, welcome to the family. And then he went from just writing a rec script to figuring out buffer overflows on ZOS to the point where he was exploiting TSO command line programs with buffer overflows, right? Now, Chad helped him with that a bunch, but had he not joined the community, I doubt he would be where he is today, right? So when I asked everyone in the community, I'm like, hey, what do you want me to say about you? He put, just say shenanigans. That's what I've been doing. These are the kind of shenanigans he's been doing. It's cutting edge research on the platform, if we're being honest. He really did pioneer. He told us all about how he does it, how he researches it, everything. He's definitely made the platform safer, right? That's what all this is about. He's definitely made it far safer than it was 5 years ago, right? The things he found were ridiculous. Anybody know what ASLR is? Anybody have it turned on? No, yeah, one person? Well, okay. So it's a security feature that if you want to prevent buffer overflows, come to my talk tomorrow. But he figured out how to bypass it, right? And all of this is because we came together as a community and we're supporting him and helping him in his research. The next 3 people released a tool. How many, okay, there's been like a dearth of hands up. I feel like your shoulders are all like too well rested. Who here has Kix applications? There we go, all right. Last year, these 3 gentlemen released a tool called Hack 3270. It's a tool, and again, they gave the talk, welcome to the family. Their tool lets us, as pen testers, test your Kix applications. So if you have a Kix application that's relying on locked fields, we can bypass that. If you have hidden fields, we bypass that. We have found insane things in Kix applications. Like if you have like a hidden aid, like someone hits F22, they'll never do that. We find it, right? All because this tool makes that possible, right? So there's all kinds of things that you can do with this tool. This tool didn't exist 3 years ago. This tool was released last year to the public. They were using it at Wells Fargo. We developed it at Wells Fargo. If you want to learn more about that, I'm going to whole talk about that tomorrow as well. Next is Leo. Leo doesn't have like a profile. This is his Twitter. I just took a picture. Leo's not like a super public person, but he's a ZOS system programmer who, the first meeting he came, he gave us a whole lecture on ACF2 and how ACF2 works and how to pen test ACF2, all those things. And now he helps with tooling, he gives ideas. We can bounce something off of him and he's like, I don't know, have you tried this other method, right? Like some of the things that we check for today in some of our enumeration scripts are because of things Leo has recommended, right? Next, oh, there we go. I don't have a profile picture for this next person. I don't really have anything about them. So this is the tool that they released. Notice it looks like a collection of all the other tools that we've talked about so far. This is a screenshot from MDT. So Louis joined us through Henry. Louis is a retired system programmer. Louis is just doing this for fun. That's it. He'll come to us and be like, hey, what if I did this? And we're like, that's crazy. How are you going to do that? He's like, I'll figure it out. And then like 2, 3 weeks, a month later, he'll come back with like, okay, here's how we figured it out, right? Things that I'm talking about are, he created, one of the scripts in this list here is automatically finding buffer overflows in APF authorized programs using a De Bruijn pattern to figure out where in the buffer you are, replacing the De Bruijn pattern in the buffer with like executable code, then recalling the exploitable module and running APF authorized. All automated. The dude's a genius. Other things that he has done, which are insane, you run his tools. If you have access to an APF authorized library, now you can monitor the TSO screens that come up, except we can see all the characters that are typed. They're just mirrored to our session, so we can see users logging in with their username and password. Or we can watch people just work on their code because we can just mirror any one session. That's the kind of things that he's doing. It is crazy what he's been able to do, right? And again, look, I don't know if you've noticed a trend in our slides of everyone helps fix my tools, right? Again, he helped fix my tools. But he took them all and made it into a framework. All of our tooling, not just mine, all of our tooling, he's made it into a framework. One of the cool things, like one of the tools in here is you run the rec script, and it will tell you all the user IDs on the system based on their ISPF profile, because it can just list them, and then it gets the user IDs. And it can tell you the last time they used it. So now you know who's active on the LPAR versus not. Yeah, cool stuff, very cool stuff. And again, he's just doing this for fun. This is like a hobby, his like retirement hobby. Our newest member is here. Michelle, put your hand up. I'll embarrass you. So Michelle gave a talk this year at B-Sides Las Vegas. I don't know if you've ever been to like any conferences outside of Mainframe conferences. All of my talks, I have to spend the first third of it explaining what ZOS is and why it matters. If I have time, I'll share a funny Twitter story. But Michelle gave a talk at B-Sides Las Vegas all about mainframe cybersecurity, where we are today, why this matters, why you should start doing research in this space, all those things. Fantastic. And then because Michelle's background is web, she comes at it from a different angle than I do. I'm a network and Linux guy, right? So I come at it from that angle. I don't know if you noticed all my tools were all network-based stuff. Michelle comes at it from a web-based application pen tester. She actually helps run, in fact, we'll soon be running, all of the Kix application testing that we do at NetSpy, right? Because that's her area of expertise. In fact, she's giving a talk tomorrow that I recommend you see about web application pen testing and mainframes, right? When we talked about network segmentation earlier today, some of those web apps are running in some Docker container, but they're communicating back through some API to your mainframe, right? All that is vulnerable to attack, right? And also, I'll say this, she started this last year. She started doing this a year ago, right? So it's just amazing. Now, before I get on this topic, we're starting to wrap up, I went on to Bing, and the Bing AI generator, image generator, and I said, Bing, make me a picture of the future of mainframes. And this is what it did. I don't know why it did that. I suspect, I like this lady staring at the weird halo, like, you do make a good point, mainframe. And that guy in the back has no idea what's going on. Anyways, all of this to say, everyone here, we're greater together, right? Whether it be in a mainframe hacking society or at a conference like this or anything, I don't know if you've ever been on the internet and gone to a mainframe forum. It sucks. And that's what people are exposed to when they first start doing anything on the mainframe, is they're exposed to those mean people on the forums, right? So mean, I even wrote like a whole blog post, fictional blog post about them, because I was so frustrated, right? We are better together as a community, and the new people won't know anything about this platform, right? I was talking to someone yesterday about how many companies have said we're moving off the mainframe. All of them, right? And the ones that are still on the mainframe have finally come to realize, hey, maybe we're not moving off the mainframe. Maybe we're keeping it around. We should probably hire people to do this because everyone's starting to retire out. That was true 10 years ago. So imagine how bad it's getting now, right? This is where the community aspect comes in. This is very much a hacker ethos. Releasing your research makes it safer for everyone. I don't know if you know this, but corporations lie. Did you know that? So this philosophy, anyone here know who the Cult of the Dead Cow is? They're like a hacking supergroup. They were all about this. You cannot, a corporation is going to care about their profits over security. You have to name and shame sometimes, especially when it's dangerous, especially when the platform is systemically important. Finally, this part's great for everyone else. It sucks for Chad and I. The next generation of mainframe pen testers, of system programmers, are going to be way better than we were, because they can stand on our shoulders, and we're happy to have them stand on our shoulders. All of the tooling, all the stuff that we didn't have, talks that were here today, like what is a SAF? All that stuff, they can benefit from. I'm super jealous sometimes when I'm like, man, there's so many more resources for those newbies than there were for me. But that's great. Last thing I want to say, I did try to leave time for questions. I saw how lively the discussion was. And I do realize I am keeping you from happy hour. Yes. So bear with me as I enter a 20-minute monologue about my life in Canada and the CN Tower. No. So are there time for questions? Sure. Yeah? Anyone? I know you had a question. Oh, I did. What was it? Awesome. So great. Oh, there is a question. Sorry, I know we didn't prep for questions, but I'm sorry. You can yell, and I'll just repeat it. It's fine. Same.
So, are there any plans to add the password tracking support to Hashcat?
It's already there. So okay, I'll repeat the question. So Hashcat is like the other password cracking tool. John the Ripper uses your CPU. Hashcat will use your GPU. GPUs are much faster for password cracking. If you've ever heard of a password cracking rig, it's multiple GPUs in like a milk crate, right? So Hashcat uses the GPU to crack passwords. And within weeks of it getting added or months of it getting added to John the Ripper, the Hashcat people added it to their tool as well, right? That's the benefit of this being open source, and the benefit of releasing these things is they get incorporated into other downstream things that you didn't even think about. Any other questions? I know oh, okay, there's one more. Well, not one more. I think I don't want to, look, I know we all want to get drinks, but yeah, drinks.
My question's pretty quick. If you had one top piece of advice for people that are new coming into the mainframe, what would be your piece of advice?
Don't get discouraged. When Chad and I used to teach the mainframe pen testing course, we used to have like a joke, like, please come back tomorrow, because the first day was all about using ZOS, and people who were used to being like Linux wizards were spending an hour copying a member from one data set to another. Okay? It is a foreign architecture, a foreign, like for you, someone who might be a Windows person, it is a foreign architecture and everything's foreign there, right? So there's a lot of ramp up time, and it can be really easy to be like, ugh, I'm out, this sucks, right? So the other thing is you will search things on Google, and the first thing will be a forum, and it'll be a person saying, here's the exact problem that you're having. And the next reply down will be like, why are you trying to do it that way? Go talk to your system programmer. And that's the end of it. And it's like, but I'm running ZPDT. I am the system programmer. Now what? Right? So don't get discouraged, and like persevere, because otherwise it's hard. Any other questions? Anything else? Great. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.